Hey friends, Peggy Hall back with you from thehealthyamerican.org. I've been speaking out against this hogwash, as I call it, for over 3 years. I came on the scene with the Healthy American early on in 2020 when I realized that a lot of people didn't understand that the governor has no authority to tell you what to do. The governor has no authority to tell you to close your business, to take your kids out of school, although they can close the public schools because it's a part of the government. But the governor had no authority to tell stores to put circles on the aisles, to walk one way and then the other. Think about how many lives were saved by all of the plexiglass that was between you and the cashier when you went around side of that plexiglass to put in your PIN number, which, by the way, that PIN pad was covered with some kind of weird thick plastic, as if that was more sanitary than just the PIN pad. I could go on and on with all of the ridiculous, ludicrous. I can't even think of the words to use because it's absolutely just flabbergasting. All of the measures that were sloshed all over us illegally, I might add. There was no legal authority for that whatsoever. But there's one last sticking point that I see people stumbling with, and that is being tested. And I'm not talking about being tested for the SAT or the LSAT or any other standardized test. I'm talking about the nasal assault. And it's very, very, very troubling to me because I just got an email from a friend who is a healthy American who apparently is not watching my videos because I've covered this so many times and I will continue to cover it forever and ever and ever. As I say, I'm marching this all the way to heaven because I want you to understand your rights at the hospital, at work, at college, if you're applying for a new job. And I will be talking about some of these other scenarios, but let's talk about you being forced to undergo the nasal assault at the ER. Let's say that you find yourself there. And I had a friend of a friend of a friend who, I'll tell you that story in just a moment. Let me know in a comment below if you or someone you know felt coerced, bullied, intimidated, threatened into taking this against your will, and that you felt, I'm just going to give in because I'm sick, I need medical care, I just don't have the fight left in me, this could be a life and death matter. Let me know if that happened to you or a loved one. And I want everybody to know there is no, I'm not passing any judgment here whatsoever. It's the opposite. I want to empower you with the tools so that you can stand up against this tyranny. I'm flabbergasted that we're still talking about this, but I don't want you to be at risk of undergoing this medical intervention against your will. So give me just a moment. We are going to dive into that. I do want to thank the sponsor of this video. I'm grateful for my sponsors because that's how I'm able to bring you this information day in, day out, all day, every day for free. And we are over here at noblegoldinvestments.com. And the message I have for you is that the United States made it official and basically legal to make America poorer, because from now on until probably after the next elections, the government is going to print as much money as it wants to. And the last time they did that, inflation went up 9%. Politicians are posturing as if they saved America's economy, but all they did was ensure that the US dollar gets devalued even further. And there are nations called the BRICS nations. They are working together to create this new reserve currency, which means the dollar is no longer to be in play. So the US government has just added fuel to the fire. The threats to the dollar are only getting stronger. So Noble Gold Investments encourages you to protect yourself. And here you can get free information right here, your family and your future. You can make sure to hedge against this economic disaster, and you can invest in gold with Noble Gold Investments. I've done interviews with the CEO before. He'll speak about it. If you want that gold in your hand or other precious metals, you can do that as well. I want you to go to noblegoldinvestments.com to get all of your questions answered. Gold is one asset that is proven to withstand recession, inflation, and just about all other economic threats. So Noble Gold Investments is there for you if you want to invest in gold. You will also get a 24-karat, 1/4 ounce gold standard coin for free when you invest with them. So go to noblegoldinvestments.com, and that's the only gold company that I trust. I also have a link for you in the description box below. Friends, I am so troubled when I get emails like I did from a friend who said, Peggy, I had a late dinner, and within an hour, I was having stabbing pains from my abdomen to my back. She said, against my better judgment, I went to the emergency room because I felt that it was a life and death matter. It turns out that she was having a gallbladder attack. Now, it's amazing because this is a person I know that has avoided what is the mainstream medical merry-go-round for about 50 years. She is a clean living individual. So I don't know what happened. So I'm using that statement just to let you know that it could happen to anyone. And what I recommend, let's just go through this step by step. She felt coerced. She said, as soon as I was admitted here, they came with the Q-tip. They wanted to stuff it up my nose. She said, I was so weak and sick, I couldn't fight back. She said, I feel horrible. I wish I hadn't done it. And now she said, I have to go back to the hospital or to the doctor. I think it is the hospital for another procedure. And she said, I don't want to go through this. So my heart goes out to all of you, either you or a loved one who found yourself in this situation. In the previous years, it had to do with the suffocation device, where they wouldn't let you into the hospital unless you had the suffocation device. Now, I find it so strange when it comes to the test. It's like, aren't hospitals for sick people? You're telling me I can't be sick in order to get care at this hospital? Well, friends, if you've been following this hogwash for any amount of time, you know that it's not about health. You know, it's not about whether you're sick or healthy. It's about one thing. What's that? You're absolutely right. Money, 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 because these hospitals are getting money every time they're doing these and every time they can claim a patient as having cooties. It's unbelievable that they're still pushing this far along in the hogwash. Who knows how long they're going to continue to do that? I guess until the money runs out or until the fear runs out. So here's what needs to be done. At a hospital, there is something called a patient's bill of rights. I recommend that you find out what hospitals are in your area. You could say a 25-mile radius, a 50-mile radius, a 100-mile radius. It depends on where you live. And find out these 2 or 3 hospitals that you possibly might end up in. Even the urgent care, you may want to contact them. And I would do this in writing. So let's talk about what to do in advance, and then we'll talk about what to do right on the spot, all right? So what to do in advance is you contact them in writing, and you give them your statement that you do not consent, and that's the phrase, I do not consent to this experimental medical intervention. I said it. There is no FDA approved TEST, all right? It doesn't exist. There is an emergency authorized test. It's not the same. There is no approval for any of these, for the one that you have stuck up your nose, for the one that you spit into a cup. They're not approved. Now, the reason why this is important is because, at least in California, actually in the United States, there are laws that protect you personally from participating in a medical experiment. That's the key phrase. You are giving no consent to participating in this medical experiment. All right. Now, you do that in writing. You can also put the suffocation device in the same letter, because believe it or not, that's not approved either. All right. It has never been approved for the reason they want you to wear it. That's it. There is no FDA licensing number on the suffocation device or on the nasal assault, which puts it in the category of a medical experiment. Now, hang on. I know I can already hear you arguing with me. Peggy, you don't understand. I was pressured. Okay, I'm going to talk about that in one moment. We're talking about trying to prevent that from happening. You do this in writing, and you have your own letter that I would just keep with you, keep in your wallet or in your car, whatever, and have that. You can even go and get it notarized. I have that on thehealthyamerican.org, and you can click on this. I have it under a religious exemption if you want to have this form. It is not a legal document, but it is a legal explanation of your rights in your state. You check off the box that you are exempt from the suffocation device, from the nasal assault, and of course from the cocktail, and you take it and you get it notarized and you sign it, and you have that, and it is a statement of your what you want to have done with your body. Now, many people have also done their power of attorney, where in writing they have, and those are floating around on the internet where you can download that and sign it, that says, I do not give consent to this. I recommend doing it in advance. And so I would contact these hospitals and urgent care centers, and I would just in writing ask them, do you require this? Do you require this medical experiment in order for me to get treatment? And I promise you, if they don't want to lose their hospital license, then they are going to write you back and say, we recommend it. We really don't want to see you without it. It's expected that you'll have it. They'll use all of these other words like it's our expectation. It is a hospital requirement. It's our protocol. It's our standard of care. They're going to come up with all of these words, and none of those are a legal requirement. There is no legal obligation for you to participate in a medical experiment, period. All right. So you get that in writing, you find out from the hospital. And if you do this in writing and you get a letter back, and it should go to the hospital administrator, and they say, yes, we will not treat you unless you have this medical experiment, that's when you write them back and you say, well, can you show me your legal authority for forcing me to undergo a medical intervention in order to get care? Because that is against your patient's Bill of Rights. So that brings me up to the Patient's Bill of Rights. Every hospital has a Patient's Bill of Rights. It is modeled on a national policy that has been around for many years. It was sort of reinforced during I call him the Big Zero, the president, a couple presidents ago. That's just my little nickname. It happened during the Big Zero years when the Unaffordable Healthcare Act went through and decimated so many other great healthcare plans. By the way, I am not on any medical insurance. I am on a Christian health share ministry. I will leave a link for you below called Samaritan Ministries. I do not pay $1 to any of these giant pharma-run medical insurance companies at all. All right, I'm a cash pay, and I will do a video on that. Actually, I should do an update on that for you coming soon. So these hospitals are, I would say, expected to follow the Patient's Bill of Rights. And when you read that Patient's Bill of Rights, and I want you to find it for your hospital in your area, have it on your phone, have a link, print it out, keep it with you. And I promise you that at least twice in that Patient's Bill of Rights, it will say that you have a right to refuse any medical treatment that you don't want, wait for it, without being denied additional care. This is so important that I want to repeat it. You have the right, and it's covered under the Patient's Bill of Rights, to decline any offered medical treatment without being denied further treatment. Let me give you an example. You break your leg, or my friend that went in with the gallbladder attack. They may have said, we want to give you a shot of morphine for the pain. You and she and I, we have the right to refuse, to decline, to give no consent to receiving a shot of morphine, and they cannot refuse to treat you. I hope you understand that clearly. There's a second item in the Patient's Bill of Rights that says that you have the right to be informed of any medical experiment that they want to try on you. A medical experiment might be the off-label use of a drug. Maybe there was a drug approved for the FDA for this condition, and they use it for this condition, even though it wasn't approved. Therefore, you would have to be informed as to that, and you have the right to agree or to decline. I already explained that the nasal assault and the suffocation device, both of those are medical experiments. So there's a second argument that you have the right of no consent. You have the right to refuse your consent to any medical experiment without being denied the rest of the care. Now I can hear you again. loud and clear. But Peggy, it doesn't matter. They still didn't want to treat me. All right. So here's a couple of, let me give you a couple of simple things and then where you could fight a little bit more. In the case of my friend who was so weak and so sick, she's just like, oh, whatever, I need to be seen by the doctor. Instead of shoving that who knows what up who knows where, I call it the nasal assault. There's a stronger term that can be used as well when something is forced into your body against your will. Yeah, it's a 4-letter word that starts with an R. That's basically it. So in that case, I would say to the doctor or the nurse, I would say, if you want to test me, and I'm not saying I would be tested, but if you found yourself in this position, and if you wanted to get your medical care and you didn't want to go through everything that I just told you, then I would you could blow your nose on a tissue. Blow your nose on a tissue and tell them to take that swab and rub it on that tissue. If it's so contagious that you just breathing on someone could, you're the silent assassin, you breathing on someone, they're going to drop over, keel over dead. Why can't you just breathe on the swab? I would ask them that. If it's so contagious. All right. The other thing is, if you wanted to do so, I'm not saying I would, but if you wanted to do so, you could decline the nasal assault and you could say, I'll spit in a cup. Give me a cup, I'll spit in it. Now, friends, there are those that told me that they did go with the spitting in a cup because it's not an invasive assault. You have to be careful because somebody told me that they gave them a solution to swirl in their mouth and then spit out. I would not take anything in my mouth like that they give you, all right? Because you don't know what's in this solution that they want you to do. So those are a couple that you could do. What I recommend doing is having whoever is taking care of you, I would say, I want to speak to the hospital administrator. You're not going to get anywhere dealing with the nurse. You're not going to get anywhere dealing with the admitting clerk. You need to speak to the highest authority, whoever has the highest responsibility at that facility at the moment of your visit. There is someone there. And you say, I want to speak to that person, bring them here. You give them the patient's bill of rights and you have that person read it to you. And when they read the sentence about you have the right of no consent, you stop them and you say, I don't consent. And then when they say, well, we can't treat you without you being tested, then you say, all right, I want you to give that to me in writing. And I want you to sign your name and all of the other medical practitioners' names who are refusing my care. And I have never, in my experience, because I've had people texting me from the ER, and I have never had anyone be denied medical care when they say, I want you to put it in writing that you're denying me and I want your name on it. And I want the name of all these other, all of your cronies that are denying me as well. All right. So that's another way of doing it. I want to give you another way yet still. You could say, well, what if you don't test me? What if it came out positive and says that I have cooties? What would you do differently? How is that different than me just coming and getting treated? Other than you getting paid for it, I don't know if I'd say that part. How would I be treated differently if I show a positive test? And ask them that question. And they may say, well, we're not going to treat you differently. We're just going to put it down in our records. Oh, well, then just put it down that I have it. Just put it down that I have cooties. Now, you have to be careful. You don't want it in your record that you have cooties and then they come along with remdesivir or something like that. So I'm saying this a little bit in jest, but you need to ask them, what is the protocol if you think I have it? And the other thing you want to ask them is, where is the FDA license for this test? How do I know it's reliable? There is no FDA license for that test. So you're just going to spin them into frustration. And ideally, they're going to get exasperated and just let you have your treatment without all of that. Now, this is easy for me to say sitting in front of a computer screen. I'm not under all of the stress and the adrenaline and the fear that something, my life is at risk or something, which is why I recommend doing it in advance. Now, let me cover one other question that a lot of you have, and that is about, Peggy, I'm afraid that they're going to give me the cooties shot while I'm there. And what do I say when they ask me if I've had it or not? Well, let me tell you what other healthy Americans have told me. Some healthy Americans have told the doctors what the doctor wants to hear. Some of them have said, oh yeah, I'm good. I've already had all of them. And the reason why they've said that is because they want it to be in the record that they've already had it. They don't want there to be any funny business with it being slipped into an IV or something. And if this is what some people have told me, that they have fudged it and they've said, oh yeah, I've already had it and I'm good. Another healthy American told me that they told the doctor, I had one and I had such a bad reaction that I can never have another one. And it would be horrible if you gave me one, because then you would be held responsible for my death. So that's another, I'm not saying recommending what you do. You have to come to your own conclusion. I'm telling you what other healthy Americans have done. All right. And so those are a couple of options. The other option, again, is where you have your power of attorney, which clearly states that I give no consent to any cooties. Now, friends, you know, they have other ways of doing it. It's not just the injection. They have, because I've done videos on this as well, I don't know how widespread this is, but they're coming out with patches and sprays and pills and who knows what. That's why I wouldn't want to drink anything either. But let me finish with, hopefully this is going to be a more comforting note, all right? I believe that fear surrounding whether or not they're going to give you an injection, whether or not they're going to test you, what's on that swab. My personal opinion is that worrying about all of those things are very harmful. And it could be even more harmful than what you might be subjected to. I also believe that there are a lot of placebos. I personally don't believe that every single cocktail had whatever they think is in it and that it was lethal. I personally believe, number one, if it's as expensive as they told us, I believe that they're faking it and there's a lot of just saline so that they can do it really cheaply. Number two, so that's one thing that I believe. Number two, I don't think they want everybody dropping dead at once. So it's might be hit or miss in terms of who really is getting, you know, the horrible cocktail and who's getting one that's not so horrible. I want you to actually feel empowered about this potential scenario. And hopefully it's never going to happen to you. Hopefully that you're going to be safe and healthy and happy, staying away from all of the mainstream medical merry-go-round. Let me know in a comment below if you have another idea as to what you can do to refuse that. Everything that I explained to you can also be done against your boss and against your college and against, you know, even in the military. We've had success with that and they're really rolling back. Now, I do have a standalone full-blown program called How to Say, you know, No to the Nasal Consent. But basically in this, you know, 20 minutes, I gave you all of the highlights. If you want to support the work I do, you could go over to thehealthyamerican.org. I'll show you where that is. I'll show you those couple of documents. This is a way that you could support me and what I do, but it's not required. I'm so grateful to all of you that have sent a card, a letter. I get so many nice notes and cards from everybody, and your gift of financial support is what helps me keep going. So I would like to give you something in exchange. And so here you go. You can go to the products and classes. And here it is. Well, this is one of them, Know Your Medical Rights, and then No Consent to Nasal Testing. And I have several other classes. This is what I was talking about, the document that you can get in order to put all of your statements and have it notarized. It is not a power of attorney. I just want you to be clear. It is an informational document that contains all of the laws in your state. We have it state by state. And many healthy Americans have purchased that as a way to support my work. And then they've gotten it notarized, they sign it. A notary simply means that you are the person attesting to what is on that document. You are the one whose signature is on that document. And when you have that and you show it to those in the medical field, or hopefully people are not being as persecuted as they were in times gone by, it's really not that suitable for the employer. I have another approach for that. In fact, I think I'll do a short video just as a recap for folks that are applying for jobs and they're still struggling. So I'll do that following this as a little extra video this evening, but I am here for your well-being, right? Your rights and protecting your rights is what I'm here for. I stand for truth. I stand for uncovering truth. I do bring breaking news and headlines because I want to use that as an exercise in critical thinking, but I am not here to put you in the spin cycle and to hang you out to dry. I personally can't stand when I feel horrible after watching the doom and gloom videos. It leaves me feeling like hopeless, and I want to feel empowered. I want to feel encouraged. And so I've got so many videos that I want to do for you this week. I want to talk about who's afraid of the big bad who. You don't need to go into the spin cycle over the who, friends. I've done several videos on that before. I'm not even going to get into the legalities of it. I've already covered that. I'm just going to get into the common sense of it. And then let's talk about those of you that are applying for jobs, or you know someone who's applying for a job. And my prayers are with you for complete health and healing. And I want you to live each day in gratitude and optimism. I call it cheerful curiosity. I always am looking forward to something good that's happening in the day. One of my phrases is, things could turn out better than expected. And so many of you have been asking me to bring more positive messages like I do on my other channel, which is Living Swell. It's here on YouTube, Living Swell with Peggy Hall. So I'm going to be bumping up a lot more of those messages in terms of where do we go from here? How do we create life and shape our life and create the conditions so that we can thrive, regardless of what the new world disorder has in store for us, regardless of the 15-minute cities, regardless of the aerosol spraying and the 5G and everything else, because I am not going to live in fear. I'm going to live in faith, and I am going to live in freedom. And I'm so glad to have you on board. Big shout out to all our healthy Americans. I really appreciate your comments. I read them after the videos broadcast, and I often share your comments in my newsletter. So be sure you're on the free newsletter and also the free Substack, and my lovely moderators will leave you links for that below. All right, see you in the very next broadcast.